Clock, shall we start?
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
We have a prayer from this day of God. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Jesus, protector and guide, our lives overflow with your love. Your word and your flesh fill us with strength in difficult times. They nourish our lives as we celebrate your presence. Walk with us, gracious Savior, through our community, life, and ministry. Give us the courage to join you in offering our lives. We make our offering so that those who believe themselves outside your embrace, those ignored or demeaned by society, may know the goodness and kindness of your heart. In this way, may all humanity come to dwell in your house. In a world of justice and reconciliation, and look forward to the dawning reign of God. Amen.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome once more to this monthly book club meeting. Today we are going to spend time discussing this Christian Social Manual. But while we are still waiting to see some other people arriving, we'll give 10 minutes to Jim Schroeder. He's going to summarize for us
The historical context.
No, he's going to wrap up the discussion left behind on Dehon and the French spiritual
French school.
French school of spirituality. So, Jim, you have 10 minutes.
Well, I was told 15. I don't know how long this is. It's only 2 pages.
Yeah.
Anyone who has a belief in God or in gods has a spirituality. It's a way of living what you believe, of living out your relationship with God. The French school was begun by Cardinal Pierre de Bérulle, who was born in 1575. And he considered theology and spirituality to be one rather than separate. His cousin, Barbe Acquerie, moved in with his family and formed a salon or a circle, a discussion and meditation group on spirituality. They had as many as 54 people who were following the Flemish mystics, which is a pure theocentrism, an apophatic kind of spirituality. Francis de Sales and Vincent de Paul both took part in this, and Bérulle even directed Vincent de Paul for a while. Bérulle held that if you're a Christian, you should focus primarily on Christ and his incarnation. Pope Urban VII called him the apostle of the incarnate word, so he really shifted that somewhat. He taught that union with, or adherence, they use the French adhérence, union with Christ is through union with the mysteries of the life of Jesus. And get this, he promoted an oblation of love and adoration. He founded the Oratorians to improve priestly formation and took a vow of servitude to Jesus. Following him, when he died, was Charles de Condren, who was the second general of the Oratorians. He really emphasized priesthood and sacrifice and taught, again, hear this, taught that the Mass is a perpetual oblation. He wrote that all must offer themselves as victims in total oblation, offering self with the Son in love, and experience annihilation with Christ. His approach was more negative and strict, particularly that annihilation bit. Another Oratorian followed, Jean-Jacques Ollier, and he taught that religion is adoration and sacrifice. He is known as the apostle of the Eucharist. He founded the Sulpicians, again, to improve priestly formation. And this is important, he's the best popularizer of Berulle's doctrine. He too made a vow of victim to live out the Ecce Venio and the Ecce Ancilla. Sound familiar? He saw himself as an oblate victim, which is what Dehon first wanted to name us. He developed that Sulpician form of prayer of Jesus before my eyes, Jesus in my heart, Jesus in my hands. I have not found any evidence that Dehon read much of Beroul or Condren, but he read Ollier extensively, and Ollier was their popularizer. During 5 years in college and law school in Paris, Dehon went to daily mass at Saint Sulpice, the Sulpician parish, and he had 2 Sulpician spiritual directors as a young man, Fathers Prevel and Father de la Fouhouse. Also, he used Ollier's treatise on holy orders before tonsure, minor orders, and ordination as a priest. Ollier taught, hear this, the whole life of the priest is immolation after the example of Christ. Definition of our title is priest. St. John Eudes followed, and he's called the saint of the French school. He did something very significant. He united the French school of spirituality with devotion to the Sacred Heart, which is what Dehon picked up. He saw it as an oblation of love. He promoted reparatory oblation and immolation, which is us again. He renamed the state or interior of each mystery the heart of the mystery, where we could enter into the heart of the mystery, although we cannot be in the historical event. He also took a vow of victim, an oblation of love in the active apostolate. Dehon followed him closely and adopted his mass and his prayers. And Dehon wrote that we follow devotion of the Sacred Heart according to Eudes more than Margaret Mary's version, because Eudes focused on a relationship with Jesus, and Margaret Mary was all devotional practices was her primary emphasis. Much later, in the 1800s, Blessed Francis or Francois Lieberman came along, and he is called one of the last of the Beroulians by Cognier, who's a famous historian of spirituality. Francois was Jewish and studied to be a rabbi like his dad, Orthodox rabbi. He converted in Paris and spent 4 years in Ollier's Sulpician seminary. However, he developed seizures, so his ordination was delayed for a long time. However, during that interim, he spent 6 years doing formation in the Sulpician novitiate, and he wasn't a priest or a religious. He founded the Missionaries of the Holy Heart of Mary to work with the Blacks, and then they merged with the Spiritans. Father Melchior Fry was his fellow seminarian, a Spiritan, and he was Dehon's spiritual director every 2 weeks for 6 years in Rome. During Dehon's first year, Fry gave him Lieberman's writings, which were still in manuscript form. Lieberman translates Ollier's ideas into simple language, and I think for sure he provided Dehon the greatest influence of the French school. The spiritual historian Tanqueray said, Lieberman's spiritual doctrine reflects all the values of the French school. And one of his major teachings was what he called practical love, or living out your spirituality, your love of God, by loving your neighbor. In 1874, Dehon started his own Beroulian oratory with Fathers Petit and Frion. He left only when he founded the Oblates of the Heart of Jesus ourselves. And in 1878, when Dehon took his first vows, he took a 4th vow, the vow of victimhood, like Beroul, de Condren, Ollier, and Eudes, to share in the heart of the mystery or the state of the Ecce Venio and the Ecce Ancilla. So my hope is that we will all live this life that he gave us as oblates of the heart of Jesus.
Thank you, I'd like a copy.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
We got a copy of that?
Sure, yeah, I can email it. I mean,
That was less than 10 minutes.
I know, well, I wanted to be sharp.
So the reason why I wanted to begin with the summary of the French school is to show that the social activity of Father Dehon is coming from his spirituality. It doesn't come from any sort of activism. It is what Lieberman called here practical love. He's motivated by that. So we know the story of his social activity, but before we move to that, is there anyone in the room? Has anyone has a question for Jim?
I do.
Question or comment, take your one.
If I want to learn more about Lieberman's practical love, is there a certain text you would recommend?
I have not found his writings, although I know they're published.
Okay,
In the Classics of Western Spirituality, there is a volume called Barul and the French School.
yes,
And I think there's some of his stuff in there.
okay. Thank you.
And of course, you can always Google it and
Yeah.
probably find some of his documents, because the Spiritans are the ones that really are his guardian now. Although many other religious orders, like the Sister Servants of the Heart of Mary, where Agnes Cunningham was a nun, they were founded by a follower of Lieberman also, Father Del Paz.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you.
Jim, would you provide the reference for the citation on Father Dehon saying John Eudes is we follow our
That
spirituality.
he follows that. Yeah, I have it in my notes. I will find it. I don't remember where it came from, but
Yeah, I would appreciate if you can get that reference.
yeah.
Well, I enjoy hearing that. I mean, we'll have to study it to be more clear about it, but I enjoy hearing about the historical roots of our spirituality. I mean, it gives you I don't know what the right word is, context, of course, but it's more than that. It's the milieu in which out of which it came. So it goes back to the 1500s.
1500s.
Yeah.
It really flourished in the 19th century and 18th century. Well, that's when Lieberman lived, but and Dehon. But many, many, many of the active apostolic religious orders that were founded follow the French school of spirituality. That's why when I went to the first convention of French school, I felt at home. I thought, now, these are my people. I mean, they're talking the same language. Whereas I went to the gathering of Sacred Heart communities, I didn't feel at home. I thought, this is not the SCJs. We don't have a spirituality of the Sacred Heart. The Sacred Heart is more like the springboard. You know, the love of God is the springboard for oblation, reparation, immolation, santunum, reconciliation, etc., and Iberian regnum tuum. It's the love of God for us and our response of love, rather than focusing primarily on devotion to the Sacred Heart. That's just not who we
Well,
are.
I like that explanation because I never felt comfortable with the devotional inference that is present in our life. Right? No, it just wasn't me. I didn't have an explanation for it.
And that's why the post-Vatican II special chapters
So,
eliminated that from our constitutions. They really took it all out. And they even took the title of Sacred Heart, that term. It's not found in our constitutions at all, except when referring to our proper name as priests of the Sacred Heart. So they wanted to take that out of there because, there was that whole German group under which we were founded that became highly devotional following Margaret Mary. and that's not really the core of who we are.
I'm complaining either because I don't feel attracted to it.
Right.
I just want to check, Father John, Father Joseph, can you hear us all right?
You're muted.
Yeah, you can hear it fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Joseph, can you hear us?
He's muted.
The internet. Hello, everybody. The internet
Hi.
here at Our Lady of Guadalupe is a little bit not so good, so it break on and off. So sorry, it's not your fault, but it's here.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
Well, I can send you a copy of this, Joseph. I'll email it to all who are participating today.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we thank you, Jim,
Yeah,
for
thanks a lot.
yeah,
You're welcome.
summary.
Thank you.
As I said, what I wanted to underline is to show that the social activity or engagement of Father Dehon is coming out of his spirituality. And the book we are discussing today, the Christian Social Manual, is part of this long social engagement of Father Dehon. And when you go through the book, you will discover that what Dehon is doing is to practice love through social activities. So the story of the book begins with the releasing of the encyclical Rerum Novarum. Pope Leo XIII wrote for the first time an encyclical that was addressing social questions. We know the story in the 19th century, the church ran away from the people because of the consequence of the French Revolution. The church was not interested in social issues. And for the first time, there is a pope coming up with a book or a text showing church's social interest or church's interest for social questions. Following the publication of the encyclical, the bishops were encouraged to establish in their dioceses an office that is in charge of social questions. And this is the reason why in the Diocese of Soissons, the bishop initiated the office that was in charge of the social questions. And it happened that Dehon was given the responsibility to lead that office. He was not alone. He had people like de la Tour du Pin, Father Racé. He had also Father Olivier Ternier, who was a member of that group. So the Bishop of Soissons asked them to break down the encyclical, to make the encyclical accessible to people. We know the church's documents are always there's always very high language. So the bishop wanted that encyclical made accessible to people in a language that people could grasp or understand the doctrine of the church regarding social questions. So this group of 5 people started reflecting on how to break down the encyclical. And the result of that activity was the redaction of the Catholic the Manuel Social Chrétien, which is the Christian Social Manual. The purpose, as I said, is to make the encyclical accessible, to make the Pope's principles easy for people to understand. So there is a question. I went through 3 different reviewers of the document, Manzoni, Luigi Morello, and Robert Prelot. Robert Prelot wrote a dissertation on the book. I have the dissertation in French here. If somebody wants to read it in French, I will share. So he has a chapter in his dissertation, chapter 4, dedicated to the Christian social manual. So most of the things I am sharing are taken from Manzoni, either Luigi Morello or Robert Prelot.
Who is this?
Robert Prelot is, I think he's an SCJ who wrote a dissertation.
Is he French or
He's a French, yeah, French.
And it's Pelo or
Prelot.
Prelot,
Yeah.
P-R-E-L-O-T?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is a question I checked with them. They asked themselves why Dehon is presented as the main writer of the book. Although we know many people, this is a book where many people contributed. So the easy answer I found, even P.J. Maguire is saying that since Dehon was the head of that office in the diocese, is taking responsibility for all the thesis that has been advanced in the book. And we will look at it. The second part of the book was entirely written by Dehon at the request of the bishop. So what happened is, when the book was written, they submitted the manuscript to the bishop. The bishop was not happy because it was still very high language. He asked them, can you produce something that goes down, that can help priests in their parishes to implement the teaching of the church? So Dehon was responsible for the second part of the book, which was added to the second edition.
When you say the second part, you mean? Well,
Yeah, we will talk about the breakdown of the outline of the book. So the book has known at least 6 editions. The first one was very well received among bishops, priests, even in Rome. People loved the way the principles of the Catholic social teaching were presented in the book. And people made also a lot of comment. And this pushed the commission to sit down and rewrite the book. This is why we have the second edition, the third, until we get to the 6th edition of the book. The first one, it is said that it has 136 pages. After reviewing the text and adding comment from the people, the second edition went up to almost 300 pages. So there were significant reviews in the book that meet those days the need of the people. So
it was used as a textbook in many seminaries.
Many seminaries, yeah. So it was a very well-known book, and people used it a lot. So I don't know if you have a question or a comment about that introduction before we move to something different.
Yeah. Why did Leo XIII write it? What prompted him? I mean, I know the Industrial Revolution and all that stuff. Was that his primary motivation? He saw what was going on? Or was it something more deeply rooted in the historical past? Do you have any idea?
I will say something if somebody has an idea in the room can add. As I said, the problem is some people were unhappy with the way the church was present among the people. That was the big problem. The mission strategy or the pastoral strategy of the church were not well accepted by the people. We had priests who were not well educated. Some didn't have any interest in social questions. They limited themselves to sacrament, funerals, eating with wealthy people, but the poor, their needs were not addressed. So it started in the church, this kind of commotion, this movement of people who say, no, we should do something for the people. We cannot, hide ourselves because we are running away from the French effect of the French Revolution, that we should do something for the people. To make the long story short, this is how the Pope and the Commission came up with the idea that the church has to take care of the need of the people. So this is how I can summarize a little bit the story behind the encyclical.
If I could just add on that, the church had aligned itself with the wealthy and the aristocrats and had abandoned all the people, the rural people especially. And that's why the church was outlawed and so many priests and nuns were killed and thrown out of France in the French Revolution, because the church was part of the monarchy of the upper classes. And one of the things that these people in the French school did was to go out and give missions to all of these country people, to kind of identify with them and to reach out to them, because they've been left unchurched.
This is where Dehon is making a big contribution in the pastoral strategy of the church those days. He was one of the priests who really pushed the church to change the way of being present among people. He pushed the church.
Can I ask? I'm curious, was this going on in other countries as well? I keep hearing about in France, the church being aligned with the aristocracy. Was this happening in other countries?
It was a situation in Europe. In Europe, in general. But since Dehon lived in France, and we focus on Dehon, we limit also ourselves to what was going on in France. But it was a general situation, because the effect of the French Revolution went everywhere. And many other countries were affected. For example, the idea of freedom, liberty, and all those ideas went. Secularism. They checked really the church in Europe, and particularly in France.
Yeah, it's very similar to what's happening, in the US anyway, that the church is really allied with the rich. The US bishops have.
Very much so.
It happened in Germany for sure, I know. The church had abandoned the regular people.
So now let's, I shared with you, for those who have the book, I shared with you the outline of the book. We will go over them and see what kind of questions that are addressed. Notice that the question we have here, or the theme that are addressed in the book, are not invented by Dehon and this group of priests, the Marquis de la Tour du Pin, Father Luthier, Father Racet. No, they used Rerum Novarum as their source. So if you read side by side Rerum Novarum and Christian Social Manual, you will see that they are taking the ideas from there. So let's look at the content of the book. As I said, the book has two big sections. The first section is dealing with the general principles of Catholic social teaching. And the second part is the application or an example of the application of those principles in everyday life. So we have, for example, in section 1, the book is discussing social economy. Chapter 1 is dealing with general principles that are behind the Catholic social teaching. You have the example, the reflection on the human person, family, society, the state, the role of religion, association, and so on. So I was impressed to see that those days already people were treating or had concern about family. We have also today the same problem, people want to redefine the notion of family. And this also happened those days. So those people were far way ahead of time. They understood what is going on socially. So chapter 2 is dealing with the condition of society in general. Chapter 3, section 1 is a discussion. This is the chapter we are going to discuss. The origin of social malaise. And chapter 4, it identified the agent of social crisis, which is Freemasons, Luciferians, and the Jews. Terrible. I was told that Father Dehon was responsible for this piece of writing.
Really?
He wrote on the Freemasons and the Jews as the main cause of the social crisis. So, chapter 5 is dealing with false solution to the social crisis, socialism and anarchy here. Chapter 6, the solution to the social problem. What should the church do? The contribution of the church in solving the problem. So we move to section 2. You have the outline. You can look at them. We don't have much time. The section 2, as I said, is a practical way to apply the principles. There are wonderful questions here. Family again. The farmers, we must go to the people. Corporation ideas, and so on. So this is briefly the story behind the book and what we found in the book. I don't know, what is your initial reaction to the story of the book, to the content? What is your initial reaction?
Are you talking about in general?
Yeah, in general.
I personally have great admiration for what he did. He was a real international famous mover and shaker in this regard because of the great conferences he gave in Rome that were attended by hundreds, including a lot of bishops and cardinals and priests, and his summer workshops for priests and seminarians to teach them the social teachings in factories. Dehon was into this before the Office for Social Works or Catholic Charities was invented. He was already doing it, which is why his bishop made him in charge. And he went way beyond the local. And he publicized something that was used extensively for decades influence the formation of priests, which is what he wanted to do, not by running a seminary, but by educating them on the social teachings. I mean, we've never done anything like that in the congregation that I'm aware of. So I think it's amazing. I wish we would do it again. You know, these are dated, I mean, but a lot of them, as you say, are still, there's social problems. You know, and the wealth and the poor and the farmers and so on and so forth, the problems with family and.
Yeah, we have taken, what you have described as Dehon's emphasis on pushing for the social education of the priests to a simple education.
Right.
Which is not bad, and that would be a generalized education,
Right.
but to lose the social element and the strong emphasis Dehon is really shameful in some ways, you know.
Yeah,
It's not Dehonian, if you will.
bingo. It's not.
To make a comment about that, you know, the first project of Father Dehon in establishing our congregation was to establish a community of priests who are very well prepared to work in with social questions. That's why even in the curriculum of formation, it was imagined at some point a step where scholastics will go through social formation. But it happened that that project never, you know, it completed. And it changed. We had another congregation that is different from what you taught at the beginning. There is a quote that we use at the Dehon Study Center: truth and charity are the principles of my life, and I wish them to be the legacy I leave for my congregation. He has been doing things, even though he didn't succeed on establishing this kind of seminary for the SCJs, but that idea, that motto is in his life: truth and charity. Truth is studies, charity is social, interest for social question. Yeah.
I just wanted to throw something in. You brought up that you were embarrassed about that term Jewish, and Dehon was much like Scripture is. Scripture refers to the Jews. Well, it's not about all Jews, because Jesus and the apostles and the disciples and his followers, they were all Jews, except for a few foreigners. But he was talking about a certain kind of Jew. And that's what Dehon was doing. And it's the whole issue of banking and the tremendous power that the Jews wielded through their national and international banks and controlling capital and loans and so on, because Catholics were forbidden to lend money at interest. So all the Christians were excluded from banking and loaning money, and the Jews took it over by default. Sort of the sinful activity they got left with to do. And so when he's talking about the Jews and how evil they are, he's talking about them, not about the Jewish people.
Industry.
Yeah, bankers. Would readily be called the bankers at that time.
Yeah, I don't need to debate it down, but I still find it extremely uncomfortable. For me, anytime you ascribe behavior of some to all is prejudice by definition.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so then for me, prejudice by definition is a sin, objectively or subjectively, however you want to approach it. So when I read the text, it was so difficult for me to look beyond that. And I think it's alive and well in our own society, not just about Jews, but about other groups. People flippantly say, and I've had SEJs say it without any hatred or anything, the Jews did this, or somebody did that, the gays did that. And I just say, you mean all of them? you know, and they immediately know what I'm saying.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's the language that is so off-putting to me. I just find it really hurtful. I mean, again, I don't need to debate it or anything. Just where I'm coming from.
Yeah, but look, Dehon is a man of his time. You know, I am not defending, but using history. This is the way the church was thinking about the Jews those days. You know, there were this negative apprehension of the Jews, this anti-Semitic rhetoric. The basis is they killed Jesus. That was the reason behind. They killed Jesus, they are bad people. So this took a lot of ramifications, and it came to economy, and the idea behind is they killed Jesus. And I remember last year, our Center for Jewish Culture here organized a talk on Catholic Church and
I was there.
yeah. So it was the way people taught those days. He is part of that.
No,
For sure.
I understand that. I mean, I understand the context, historical context, but what was the cause of the Holocaust?
Mhm.
You know, I don't think the Holocaust could have happened without that historical memory of depiction of the Jewish people as all, you know, money grabbers and stuff like that. It still exists today, you know. If I want to Jew you down, we say, and I don't know if you're familiar with that language, but it was the common phrase in English, I'm going to Jew you down, which means I'm going to argue you, but it's what Jewish people do.
Yeah.
So again, it's how is it broken? I mean, I could say it's a historical context right now to hate the Muslims, you know. So I'm excused if I talk that way. It isn't okay. Somehow we have to correct each other lovingly, but
Yeah, I got your point. We should acknowledge this as part of our history as a congregation. Right. And I even remember Yves Ledur is saying this is unnecessary for them. He should not have written something like this. It is unnecessary when you look at everything he has done. We cannot accept this. Yeah. Right. It doesn't fit in whatever he did those days.
No, he should have called them bankers or something, but not Jews.
Yeah, I mean, all the bankers are acting like evil or something like whatever.
Yeah.
But there is this response from the congregation. Last time we had the postulator here talking about the response of the congregation about the Jewish accusations.
I didn't hear that. Yeah.
Oh,
It's great.
Yeah, but I asked him if he can share, make public those response. He said it's still in the hands of the Holy See, so he cannot release them for everyone.
Yeah.
But I will push him if you can get the response, and I will share with the community. So, any other comment? Yes, Tony.
I know that we were talking about those particular things that have come out from the Holy See. I understand from Wayne Jenkins, the archivist, that we do have that. We have those documents in our archives. So you may want to talk to Wayne about why would he say that. If
we have the text in which Dehon has an anti-Jewish rhetoric. That was those texts were released or made public, but the response of the congregation on those texts is not yet released. The postulator said he has a copy. I openly asked him if he can share. He said we cannot share. We still wait for the Holy See to handle the case.
When you say the congregation, you mean doctrine of the faith?
Yeah.
So
I
we
think
have the documents, but we can't release them. Is that what you're saying?
They are not yet released.
No, he's saying that we have the text of Dehon's position, but we don't have the text of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith response. That's still being worked on, and they don't want to release it yet.
No.
That's what I understand, right?
No. When Dehon was accused, people wanted proof. So the congregation collected all the texts in his writings that are talking about the Jews.
Yeah.
And they published those texts. And they proved, they were also proof that he's not only talking bad things about the Jews, but they provide also texts in which he's sharing positive things about the Jews.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And those texts are available.
Okay.
And, later on, there were high-level studies done by the request of the generalate to answer to those anti-Jewish accusations. And those response from the congregation are not yet published. This is what I'm saying. I don't know if
That's what we don't have. We have the Vatican's criticism, but we don't have our response to the Vatican criticism.
We have the Vatican criticism,
Thank you.
but we do have the Vatican criticism.
We do.
All right.
That's clear.
Yeah.
That's good.
So we go to the text, unless somebody has another comment.
No.
I have one other comment, we hear a lot about anti-Semitism today. And yet some of us think, and we don't hear it as often, that there's anti-Palestinianism also going on. So, I mean, what's going to be important for us, how do we as a community speak to some of these things that nobody speaks about anti-Palestinianism, but it's out there. I mean, there's a genocide going on, and do we as a congregation, following in the footsteps of our founder who spoke about things that were going on at the time, and that happened to be the way people viewed the Jewish people at that time? What about the Palestinian people today? I just throw it out for some thought if you want to think about it. If you don't, that's okay too.
Thank you, Tom.
That is a very good comment. The reason why we go through the writings of the founder is to get lenses that can help us analyze what is going on socially. And the example you are giving about Palestinians is a good example on how we can listen to what is going on socially and react. So I think during the assembly, we made a statement that was for the immigrant or for the Palestinians.
Immigrants.
Maybe the Social Justice, Peace and Justice Commission can help us, reflect on that anti-Palestinian rhetoric today. Bob, Joseph, you have a good topic that can be developed. What do you think, Bob?
I have my statement. I could give it in 5 minutes, but I don't think it would be published.
Okay. So let's move to the text. Did you have a chance to read the text?
Yeah.
So it is open. Make your comment. What do you think about the text? What did you like the most, or what did you dislike, if I can put it like that?
If I can make a comment?
Yes, John.
This seems kind of superfluous to me, but I was struck by the language in the social manual as compared to the language that I hear in the spiritual works of Father Dehon. You mentioned that there are 5 other people or so that were connected with that, so maybe that's part of what's going on. But I was so taken with how up to date what is in the social manual is in comparison to what I read in the spiritual works. That feels so dated, and I don't speak that way. But I could take lines right out of the social manual and use those in dealing with the social problems today, because they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's what just struck me, how current it was in contrast to, and maybe we need to like update the spiritual works of Father Dehon to make them speak to us today the way that social manual did.
Yeah,
I agree.
I thought it was a wonderful book you could use in sociology classes. But like John, I was so surprised about reading and hearing those issues, how they were put forth, and I don't sense that at all in the spiritual writings, as John says. But yeah, I was also amazed at how current this thing seemed, talking about some of the same issues that we have today. And it was really interesting. I thought the founder really was a scholar in many ways. He researched a lot of stuff and put it together, I think, in a very good, lively way. So,
there were 4 words that he pulled out that struck me, and they apply perfectly today: individualism, egoism, indifference, and economic liberalism.
Amen.
I mean, that's what's killing us.
hey, John, you're right, Jim.
Yeah.
From the last 20 minutes or so of the conversation, what I realized maybe the difference, John, is that you kept emphasizing, Joseph, that they were called to drill down and make it more palatable for the common person. Whereas the spiritual writings were more of a, I don't know, just a spiritual nature. Whereas the other one, they kept on saying, no, it's not good enough. It's still too abstract. Keep on. Maybe that has something to do with the tone of it. But I agree with you. It's a totally different language.
Thank you, John. But I think the problem of language is a big challenge. I was told that the way you shape your narrative is always also going to attract people to your community. Somebody told me, we were discussing about vocation. He said, what kind of story you bring out there for people? So the language is very important. You have to find a language that is accessible for people. And the Christian Social Manual is an example of a simple language accessible to people. It's a practical language. Maybe it is a challenge, What can we do to make our spiritual writings accessible to people? This is the challenge we have at the Dehon Study Center with Monica. We think about it. What can we do to reach out to people? Oblation. It's a confusing word. She was talking about victim. Said vow victim. What does it mean?
Yeah, people don't think that way.
Yeah. So
It's the individuals and you.
Jim, do you have something?
No, I agree. I think we have to find ways to get away from some of the traditional catchwords, particularly of Sacred Heart devotion, and use the key concepts of Dehon about love of God, love of neighbor, oblation, offering yourself, responding with love, and get away from the catchword and explicate it, to unpack it. I think that's critical.
I think that's probably one of the big things that the order has to figure out and do. Because how do you even attract people in vocations when we're all talking about it differently and we're using different words and people understand it at different levels? I so water down in a way when I'm talking to brand new Dehonian associate groups versus what is talked about in here. But if we could do that, you know, you have to communicate who you are.
Well, we're not on the same page, and that's the problem. I mean, we went through Vatican II, and then we went through the renewal of the congregation following Vatican II with the constitutions of '79. And our people have not integrated it.
No.
And so we've got people who are still very much in a pre-Vatican II mindset and pre-Vatican II SCJ mindset, and those who are not.
I think, yeah,
That's a problem.
part of Dehon's power in his writing was he knew what he believed. And he was so well educated and so well grounded that he was able to put together something like this and come under attack for it. But it was new, and
Even by his own men, which is partly why it wasn't passed on.
No.
He was one of the few that lived his own charism.
This is an aside, but when I was at the Greg, and we had exams at the end of the year, you had 4 professors, and we'd always like to get a Spaniard SCJ, not a Jesuit, who was very much involved with Paul VI and writing some of those encyclicals on social justice. And as soon as he heard you were a Dehonian, a priest of Sacred Heart, you had it made. For sure you're going to need a 10. And I wondered, at those days, I don't realize as much now that why he liked Dehon. That manual, I mean, he knew that Jesuit knew that manual. And so it's amazing, that I just think I'm talking about 60 years ago. Plus, and this Jesuit who was a Spaniard, as soon as he heard that there was a Dehonian, you had it made. And now I realize more and more why he was so high on Dehon.
Was there anything else at the time that was remotely similar to Dehon's manual here? Was there anybody else writing?
According to the reviewers I consulted, that was the first ever Catholic social writing that was published after Rev Novaro. First. Nobody before them published a work dealing with social questions coming from the church. That was the reason why it was very well received and taught in seminaries.
I had a history professor at Jesuit school in Chicago who said that the Sacred Heart devotion was so popular because of what you said, that the church was so removed from the people, but they saw in Christ's heart, if you will, a closeness to their own struggles and his life and death, and not in a morbid sense, but that he knew what struggling meant. And that's why Sacred Heart devotion became such a big school, and there were so many congregations that took the name Sacred Heart.
It was the remedy for Jansenism.
Yeah.
Jansenism was an extremely severe theology and spirituality. And the devotion to the heart of Jesus is what gave you an alternative that was really almost the opposite. Yeah. That's why it spread like wildfire. Plus the fact that the Jesuits took it on and spread it.
We are running out of time. One last question. Do you see any modern social malaise? Tony pointed out this anti-Palestinian rhetoric. Do you see something else that Dehon would have, described or attacked with the same energy?
We're drowning in it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this division between the rich and the poor and control of the banks and, I mean, it's everywhere. It's like exploding.
Mhm.
There's so many parallels that just, I almost had a hard time getting my mind around.
Yeah. Attacking any agency and attacking the money for any agency that reaches out to the poor, the sick,
Well,
the stranger, the orphan. It's the
Yeah.
antithesis of Christianity and the scriptures.
The issue of family, divorce.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's
Well, for me, it's the background of what causes divorce and separate. Not that it would never happen, but I mean, it's not a friendly family atmosphere. I mean, how the hell does a family try and raise children when both parents are working 2 and 3 jobs? It goes back to the latchkey kids that they own,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, the family's just disintegrated. If there is a mother and a father, but most often there's only one parent. And I've met many a woman that are working 3 jobs.
mhm.
Yep, and then you end up with feral children.
Okay, I think it is 2:05.
Yeah.
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 So we can stop there. I know we have questions. My purpose was not to conduct a high-level analysis of the book. My purpose was to raise awareness that we have resources. We can look at if we need to research on specific questions. And the Christian Social Manual has a lot of good questions that we can study, compare and contrast what was going on those days, what Dehon said, and how we went about solving those issues. I was wondering if, I don't, this is a question, do you want us to spend more time on the book, or it is over? If you have a specific chapter you want us to read more,
Well, I'd like to try and explore, I think what Monica brought up, and that is, how do we translate our Dehonian spirituality into common language for the everyday people? How do we do that, or is it just going to go drifting off into nowhere again? Well, that's one thing, and then I had another one in mind, but I can't think of it immediately. But how can we? Oh, it is tied to what I just said. How do we move the church from this state of being so disconnected from what's going on in society to one that is, it doesn't have to be a Dehon, but more socially conscious? I mean, there are people doing it, obviously, but I'm talking about the mainstream, you know. So I wonder if we can learn from the manual and the context on how we might approach things, you know. I didn't realize that this was written by a committee, you know. I didn't know that. I thought they all sat down and started penning it, you know. He might have been the primary author, but he was working with others.
But he came late.
Anyway,
Yeah, he came late. The first one was the La Tour du Pain, Father Latier and the Father Lassé. They came late, 6 months after the office was established. And since they knew, as Jim mentioned, they knew that this guy is good in social engagement, so they gave him the lead of the office. And he organized the work. Yeah.
and the third thing I'd like to say is, how can we get our schools, which have great influence, both at the theological and the secondary levels and then beginning of, how can we get them to see that as part of their mission. At whatever level they're at, not that we should tell them what to do. I know those are more than beyond imagination, but
Yes.
I drafted that, the statement during your general conference.
yes, you did.
And I drafted it like a marketer who's afraid of what people are gonna say. And in my dream world, I'd be like, how do we all start talking like Father Dehon did in his Christmas sermon?
Wow.
Instead of worried about what the press is gonna say.
But we're always hedging our bet, we're always holding back, you know, what we really think.
Mary would have done much better, but Mary was busy taking minutes.
Okay,
And if they don't speak Greek to Greeks,
Yeah.
they don't understand.
That's the problem, so how do you translate it?
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing it to us.
We will follow with suggestions on what to do with the material we have on the Christian Social Manual. If there is a need to spend time on one more chapter, we can do it next. Okay, thank you, and see you next month.
Very good.
I think one thing is
Thanks, Mary.
the second part where you talk that Dehon himself wrote, which is about the practical applications. What would be the practical applications today?
Right,
Yeah.
What could we do?
even one or
As
two,
practical application today, yeah.
even one or two things.